Going on, everybody? How's it going? Let me switch over to this screen. Me tonight. Hello, welcome to the Tech Interview Guide. I'm Ian Douglas, I'm the author of this website, and good to see the usual hooligans hanging out in chat. So hello, Izui and Heartbender. Thanks for dropping by. Let's see what's going on today. My third live session today. Did one first thing this morning on Twitch for work, and then did a somebody just resubscribed for 3 months. Appreciate it, Harbender. Thanks very much. Appreciate the subscription. Yeah, so I did a event at work this morning that you can go check out, Twitch TV/GetPostman. It's also up on YouTube if you go to youtube.com/postman. I had Becca Harwa Weigel from Virtual Coffee, and we were doing some web scraping, some pretty cool web scraping stuff in Postman. That was a lot of fun. And then finished that, had all company demo day, finished that, had a quick bite to eat for lunch, got my new work laptop in, finally, started getting that set up, and then I had an event in the afternoon. I did a live stream for Prime Academy, the school that Zooey went to, and did a little tech interview prep talk for them. Then ran out of there, went to my physical therapy appointment, and got back from that, cooked dinner, finished dinner, sitting relaxing on the couch going, my phone beeped. It's like, oh yeah, gotta go get ready for the live stream. So yeah, as soon as this is over, I'm going to bed. It's a long day today, but it's been fun. I love the job, love streaming, being live, helping people out. So it gets me started. Thanks for hanging out today. Appreciate it. I was pretty much just going to go through some of the Discord queued up questions that are still queued up. I got, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 questions there. There were also a couple of themes that kind of came up from the tech interview prep that I did this afternoon at Zooey's school that I thought I'd kind of touch on. We were talking about company research and talking about who do you reach out to at a company. And then I love doing those kinds of events because I usually wrap that up in about 40 minutes. And I'm like, hey, I'm just going to hang out and answer questions if anybody's got questions. And there's almost always. And the questions are great. I love the questions people come up with. And they were a lot to do around what about this kind of scenario? What about that kind of scenario? We say in tech, oh, getting that first job is hard. Getting that first job is probably not going to be your favorite job. It's not going to be your dream job, but it is a job. And we were talking a little bit about the balance of how much you have to put up with at a job before leaving, or do you even apply for a job knowing it's going to be bad? If you know it's going to be bad, why would you even take the job? And so there's a kind of a handful of different ways of thinking with that. And I basically told the students, hey, look, I know that there is a healthy dose of privilege in saying oh yeah, just don't take the job. If that company's not what you want, just wait for the next job. It's a lot easier said than done looking for that job in tech. Finding that first job in tech. And we basically told, we being myself, people at the school, and Dewey was actually on the call to hang out with us for a bit, and basically told the students, you know what, if you got to suck it up for 6 months to a year and a half, how much could you put up with before leaving so that you can go get a job to start. Once you get that first year and a half of experience, literally anybody will hire you. Literally, just about everybody is going to want to hire you at that point. And so how much can you put up with? How much can you endure? But it also raised the question of, should you have to? And there were some really great questions about, what about underrepresented groups in tech? Because white males, we are seriously overrepresented in tech. Males, and then white males especially. And how do you sort of balance that out when you know that you're underrepresented, and should you work at a place where you're going to be unhappy? And it was a really thoughtful question. So a handful of these questions kind of come up, and they were really thoughtfully portrayed, and it actually made me kind of think for a minute. It's yeah, you know what, as a white male in tech, I've been in the industry now almost 26 years, and 26 years on and being able to turn down jobs and turn down job offers, having multiple job offers, like there's a lot of privilege. There's a lot of position and benefit and so on, um, that I have had access to, honestly, within the tech industry that others have not had access to. And talking to a group of students and say like, "Oh yeah, if you don't like that company, just don't apply there." But at the same time, like that might be the only company in their area who's even hiring entry level developers. So they may not have a choice. They may not have the position or privilege or the time to go study, all that kind of stuff. And so it's always a good eye opener for me to realize that, yeah, being a white male in tech, I've got a lot of privilege, I've got a lot of position, I've got platform. That's also why I love doing live stream, so that I can have other people on the stream to help share their perspectives and so on. And so give a shout out to Zooey, because Zooey, you're starting a new job on Monday. Hooray! And I'm looking forward to having Zooey on the stream so we can hear more about Zooey's journey. I think it's going to be fantastic. Um, says thanks for the follow. It was something I programmed onto the button. But I think that Dewey has a very interesting sort of background and the journey that you took to get into tech and get this job, and then wait patiently to actually start the job, because they made you that offer like a long time ago, and you took the offer a long time ago, and you've been basically waiting like January to actually start the job. And so kudos to you for toughing that out so long. Um, yeah, good. Lumesh, good to see you in chat. I don't know if it's just me or if the audio's choppy. Good question. Is my audio choppy for others? How is my audio sounding for other people? See if that's any better. I'm listening to myself in another window. I don't know. It's hard for me to tell. Been a long wait, but it was nice not to stress about doing more whiteboarding interviews. Yeah, for sure. Nope, my audio is definitely cutting out. And this happened to me this morning too. So my Windows PC rebooted, and when it rebooted, like everything got all messed up. So one sec. Let me see if I can change. Let's see if that's going to be any better. Turn off some of the microphone filtering. See if that's. Let me know. Music is fine, but mic audio. Okay, cool. Well, I just turned off a bunch of filters, so let me know if that sounds any better or gets over time. Hopefully, it is not any better. I'm listening to myself in another window, and it is no better, unfortunately. I have a backup microphone, but it's in a box. All right, bear with me. Let's try. I don't know if that'll be any better or any worse. If you can like give me some feedback whether that's any better or not. The quality of the microphone on this headset is not great. You'll be able to hear my voice, but it's not going to be fantastic. Sounds like I'm talking into a can. But at least it's not cutting in and out, so I know it's the microphone. Well, at least we know it's the Yeti. That's disappointing. You can hear every word, but it does sound like you're at McDonald's. Would you like some fries with that? Yeah, I don't know that there's going to be anything I can do to this microphone to improve the quality, to be honest. Let's see. One. Switch back out. So all the settings are... I just want to do a quick audio check here. I'm listening to myself in another browser. Now, one setting. Why is that cutting out? All right, let's see if that's... Well, I think this is going to be the same as before, but let's see. Let's see what this sounds like. That's the one that sounds like I'm in a can. Okay, give me one more thing to try here. How about that? Is that any better? Now I hear a ton of background noise. That might be a little better, maybe. At least I don't get the echo now, because I had both microphones enabled at the same time. Wait, why do I... Nope. Okay, let's try this. I removed one microphone. We'll get there. We'll figure this out. And all I did was reboot my Windows machine. Why am I hearing so much echo? Ah, it's frustrating. Let's try that. Let's see if that's going to be any better on the echo. Okay, so that got rid of the echo at least, but that's actually running this headset. The other microphone was actually my other webcam that has a built-in microphone, and it's not great. Never downgrade to Windows 11. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I did upgrade to Windows 11 a while back, and something happened this morning where my primary Elgato Facecam camera stopped working right before the live stream that I had to do for work. Thankfully, I have a backup Elgato Facecam. I plugged that in a hurry, got that one up and running, but then Windows had to reboot. And since then, all day long, I've been dealing with like audio and video stuff. So I guess I know how I'm spending my weekend. I'm going to spend my weekend like debugging all this. I'm going to tear apart the microphone and check the cables, and maybe it's like kinked or something. Somewhere along the way, I have no idea why my audio sounds horrible tonight. So apologize for that. That is kind of the point of doing these live streams, is that you have at least decent audio. They usually tell you like it doesn't matter about the video as long as people can hear you clearly. And in this case, you're not hearing me very well because of the quality of the microphone. So we'll see how it goes. Let me try. Just want to try changing a few other settings here. I don't have like an equalizer for the Beats headphone. At least nothing I can set on the microphone side of things. So this is as good as you're going to get for tonight. So I apologize if it's too much to bear. I get it. You don't have to stick around, but I do appreciate those that stick around. Yeah, I was just going to go through some questions from the kind of the backlog of Q&A, or if there's other stuff you want to chat about, if you want to drop it in chat, happy to talk about whatever you got on your mind. Now I like want to tear this whole thing apart and like find out what's going on with my microphone. I do have another Blue Yeti. I've had this one now for a year and a half, a little over a year and a half. And it's been a decent microphone until February. I got told like it was starting to kind of cut in and out on a live stream, and today has just been horrible. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know. Yay, audio stuff.
So yeah, I'll probably spend later tonight tinkering and see if I can get that in any better shape. Yeah, sorry about that. So yeah, if you have questions, if you want to drop them in chat, feel free to drop questions in chat. I'm happy to address stuff kind of per usual. Otherwise, I'm going to hop over to Discord. Where did I find Discord? There's Discord. So one nice thing about having the new work laptop is I can shut down all the work stuff on my main Windows PC now, which makes it run a little bit faster, and it'll be a little less tedious to deal with audio video stuff. But yeah, the interesting thing about getting this job, and they said like, hey, we want to get you a laptop. We're going to send you a monitor and a keyboard and a mouse. And I'm like, hey, you know what? Let me send you a picture of everything I got on my desk right now. I got the keyboard. I got the mouse. I have more than enough monitors. Please, please, for the love of everything, don't send me another monitor. And I said, instead, could I get another camera and could I get another microphone? And they're like, all right. It was cheaper than them like buying all this other like Apple keyboard, Apple mouse, Apple trackpad, you know, fancy monitor and like shipping it out to me. It was cheaper just to get the other camera and the other microphone. So thankfully the camera came in pretty clutch today to switch over to that. And my other Yeti microphone's in a box over on a shelf. So I will dig that out later and see whether that improves things. I don't want to do it like right this moment. So I don't know whether it's the USB cable that's going into the PC or if it's the microphone itself. So I'll swap things out bit by bit and see if I can narrow that down a little bit. But yeah, let's dive in on some backlog questions here. There were a few that I answered when I had Taylor on the stream on Sunday. And again, starting this coming Sunday, the stream time is going to change on Sundays only. So Thursday night, I'm going to stream at this time every Thursday. But on Sunday, I'm going to start streaming at 11 a.m. Mountain Time, which would be 10 a.m. Pacific and 1 p.m. Eastern Time, just to help accommodate. I've had a number of messages from people over in the UK, well, Europe, generally speaking, but a lot of folks in the UK saying like, hey, I want to attend the live stream, but I just can't. When you're streaming at your usual time, it's like 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning or something over there. And there are also some really cool people that I want to have on the stream that I also want to accommodate their time. And so we're going to do those on Sundays. So if you see me having a guest on a Sunday, it either means like it's someone who can't do like a typical Thursday night, or it's going to be someone international where that Sunday slot is going to be a little more conducive for the time of day. Cool. So yeah, let's dive in on a couple of these questions. So I did answer a couple of them with Taylor, and there were a couple of more that I wanted to kind of go over tonight. So, hey G&D, good to see you. But yes, the long and short of this is like upgrading to Windows 11. I mean, generally my Windows 11 experience has been really good. I've got this PC on Windows 11. I've got another PC on Windows 11. I upgraded my Surface tablet to Windows 11, and they've all been great, except for this main PC. The last couple times I reboot, it either gets stuck in a reboot loop, or every time it does start up, like something about my microphone or my audio settings is off, or my camera stops working, and I got to go in and I got to like reset all the settings on the camera. What's weird about that is the Elgato Facecam, their whole thing about that camera is all of the settings get saved on the camera itself, and so I should be able to unplug it from this PC and plug it into another machine, and I should look exactly the same. But if I shut off this camera and reboot and turn the camera back on, the colors and all that stuff are like way off, and I have no idea why. So Limashi asked in chat, how do you accomplish more while working less? Is it a matter of experience? Yeah, the audio is different today. So this microphone's actually not working. So I'm actually using the microphone on my headset right now. And I got to try to debug like what's going on with my main Yeti mic. So yeah, apologies for the audio quality tonight. Great question though, Limashi, in chat. So how do you accomplish more while working less? It's an interesting thing to think about because it's kind of this whole like work harder, not smarter, or work smarter, not harder kind of mentality. Some of it does come with experience. When you have seen this problem before, you know kind of how to tackle it, and so it doesn't take as much effort the next time you do it. very much the same way, like, tonight for dinner I made fried rice. And the very first time I made it, I had the recipe printed out and I'm following it step by step and I'm measuring everything super carefully. And the second time I made it, I had the recipe there and I kind of referenced it. Now when I make the fried rice, I just throw crap in bowls and like chop stuff up and I don't even measure stuff. I'm like, glug, 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 that seems about right. And so over time, you kind of get to a point where the overall experience of cooking this meal doesn't take as long because I've done it a bunch. And the same can kind of apply to software development, where it's not that you're working any less hard, it's kind of that memory of like, oh yeah, been there, done this before, this is how I solved it, or this is roughly what I did last time, and you have a better idea of what to do. If it's something more along the line where, like let's say I'm building an API, and the next time I have to build an API, it's not going to be the exact same thing. It's not going to be the same API. It's not going to have the same endpoints. The general feel of how I develop an API is still going to be the same, though. So how I build that API is going to be the same. Like maybe the tech stack that I use is going to be the same tech stack, or the authentication schema that I want to use, or scheme that I want to use for authenticating to the API is going to be the same as I used last time. And so maybe I'm using similar libraries that I know how to implement that stuff quickly. But actually sitting down now and developing this whole new thing is still going to take time. And so some of it is that you're familiar with some of it, but you're also familiar with just the pattern of what to do. So I know how to go build a RESTful API. I know how to build those routes. I know what those routes are going to look like. I know how to put a resource ID on the URI path because I've done it a bunch. And so even though this API that I'm building today is completely different, it's still following the same kinds of steps. So kind of going back to that recipe analogy, I can just pull all the ingredients out of the fridge and out of the cupboards and I can make fried rice. If I were to make something else that was kind of like fried rice, yeah, I might reference the recipe. There might be some new ingredient that I hadn't used before, and I got to be a little more careful about how I chop something up or dice something up. But at the end of the day, cooking is cooking, and you do enough of it, and it's like, okay, I know for this pan, for these kinds of ingredients, I don't want it to be hotter than this on the stove, or everything's going to burn quicker than it cooks. And so, again, it just comes down to the experience of once you kind of get the concept of how to cook, everything you cook is going to feel the same, but it's going to follow the same sorts of steps. And as you practice those steps, you're going to get faster, you're going to get better. I hope that makes sense. In my mind, it makes sense. As far as an analogy of drawing a comparison between like cooking different kinds of food and building different kinds of software, as you practice and gain wisdom, I guess, about how sort of worked through some steps, and it's like, oh, if I'm chopping up onion and vegetables and raw chicken, I don't want to chop up the raw chicken and then chop up the vegetables because my cutting board's full of raw chicken. So I want to cut up all the vegetables first, put that in a bowl, and then cut up my raw chicken, and then I can wash that cutting board. I don't care if the raw chicken gets a little bit of like leftover vegetable, but I don't want my vegetable to have raw chicken. And so some of that just comes with wisdom over time. And it's the same kind of thing with software development. I know that I can't really plan out my whole API until I at least plan some of the database, because how I develop my database schema is going to sort of define how I'm actually going to be dealing with my RESTful resources as part of pulling data out of that database for the API. And so I can kind of imagine a little bit of it, but I can't really develop that API until I do at least a little bit of that database schema and know how these tables are going to operate and how I'm actually going to go fetch that stuff out of the database to put into a response to send back as part of the API. The reason I ask so Lamesh kind of follows up, says the reason I ask is because I feel like I'm in a rut where I can only do more by literally working more hours, which I don't think is sustainable. I don't either. How do you explain the disparity between people's rates of growth? Some engineers get to staff engineer in 6 years, others are stuck at mid-level after 10. I've said on the stream before that having 5 years experience varies a lot depending on the kinds of responsibilities that you have and the kinds of work that you've been doing and how you grow as an engineer. When I look at your resume and I talk to you as part of the interview, I'm trying to find out, do you have 5 progressive years of doing more and taking on more responsibility and seeing growth and seeing progression? Or are you doing the same thing every year for 5 years? So it's a question of, do you have 5 years of experience or do you have 1 year of experience 5 times? If you're just doing the same thing over and over again, maybe just slightly different, you're probably not progressing and growing the same way this other person would be progressing and growing, where there's just this constant growth and constant progression. You're always taking on new things and new responsibilities. Some of that is company based. Sometimes the company's like, hey, you did a great job on that project. We got another project just like it. You're going to do wonderful at it. And yeah, you're going to build that and you're going to succeed. And be like, you're amazing at doing that. We've got a third project which is just like it. You're going to crush it. You just did the same thing 3 times. You're not really going to grow. You're going to get faster at doing that, but you're not growing. Where over here, if this other engineer is like, okay, well, you built that project and you learned and you grew and you did some things. Now we're going to give you a different kind of project to stretch and grow you in different ways. Now you've got progression of skill. And then the third project, we're going to have you do like a little bit of that stuff again, but now we're going to add like authentication. So now you got to go learn everything about authentication. And now you're going to learn about scalability, and now you're going to learn blah, 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 and now you're going to learn blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, this person over here, they're on their 5th year, 6th year. It's like, hey, we got another Rails API that we want you to build. It's like, oh, again, the same thing again. It's like, all right, Rails new, blah, 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 blah. And like, you knock the thing out in a month or two, but you're not really progressing in your skill. You're just doing the same thing over and over, faster, maybe gaining a little bit of wisdom, maybe a little bit of growth if you get into a new version of Ruby or a new version of Rails or a new version of a database, but you're certainly not progressing like this other engineer who's constantly like being given all kinds of new things. So that would be a conversation I would be having with my manager and say, hey, you know what? I just finished the second project, which was just like the first project. Now you're talking to me about this third project, which again is exactly the same. Like, I want to make sure that I'm growing and expanding my skills and learning new things. What can we do to like dip into some other areas so that I can continue to grow as an engineer? Because I don't want to be stuck 5 years from now in a position where I'm doing the exact same thing, on the exact same kind of project, on the exact same kind of team. Like, I need to learn and grow and develop myself. And that's their job, is to make those opportunities available for you. And if they can't make those opportunities available for you, you're going to make those opportunities available by going to some other company that's going to make those opportunities available. And it always stinks to have to leave a job, but that's one of the primary reasons that people leave, is they feel like they're not growing in their job anymore. So I would be having that conversation with your manager and say, I don't want to keep doing the same thing. Like, yeah, I'm good at it. I get it. And I get that you want this done quickly, and the faster I do it, the more profit the company makes, and so on. But I'm not growing. I'm not learning anything new, or minimally. I'm learning very minimally, anything new. I'm just applying the same knowledge over and over again. And I want to be doing other stuff. I want to learn this. I want to learn this. I want to learn this. What do we have available where I can go learn those things or add that into a project of some kind in some way, so that I can do more than just the same 15 projects I just did over the last 5 years that are all cookie cutter versions of the same thing. How do you purposely drive that growth? So hopefully, I wouldn't say it's luck. I would say it's up to the management and it's up to the company to make those opportunities available. But it also comes from you driving some of that conversation and saying, like, hey, I'm feeling stagnant in my skill, and I want to learn this, this, this. Can we make those opportunities available? Because I don't want to leave the company, but I want to make sure that I'm continuing to grow, and I don't see a lot of growth in myself. I don't feel growth in myself. You have to advocate for yourself. No one else is going to advocate for you. You should not expect anyone else to advocate for you. Your manager should be advocating for you, But they can only advocate for you for things when you go to them and say, hey, I want to learn ABC. How can we make that happen? Now they know that they need to go look for those opportunities. But they're not just sitting at their desk, day after day going, I wonder what I can do to stretch Ian. Because they don't necessarily know what I want to be doing. They don't necessarily know what I prefer to be working on, or are there, different kinds of languages or frameworks or, authentications or whatever that I want to learn. As a manager, I might say like, hey, I need somebody to go learn this particular topic. So if you're not feeling like you're growing, do you want to learn this topic because this is something new? Now you have the decision, do you want to learn that thing that they're presenting to you, or do you want to give them a list and say, these are the things I want to learn, how can we make these opportunities available? And that's their job. Their job is to go find ways of making that for you, by finding projects or finding work or giving you some time to go explore those kinds of things to find out if that's really what you want to be doing. I have, as a manager, I would sit down with my team and be like, hey, are you happy doing what you're doing? Is there anything you want to go explore? And then I would try to make opportunities available. Sometimes they would come back and be like, you know what, I thought I wanted that. Turns out it wasn't. So can I come back and do what I was doing before? And yeah, that worked out for one particular person. They actually left the company to go pursue something they wanted to do more than the kind of software development I had them doing. And they're like, yeah, I want to get into, I think it was mobile gaming or something. And they went and they tried it for less than a year. And they're like, nope, not for me. I thought it was going to be fun. It was kind of a drain, and it wasn't what I wanted to do. And he went back to the company. And he kind of picked up his old job and kind of flourished again, because he realized that no, what he really wanted to be doing was what he was comfortable with, what he was familiar with. And everybody's life circumstance is different as far as where you are in life and what kind of new risk and tolerances you have. And for him, he thought he wanted to go try something new, and it wasn't after all. But you have to advocate for yourself on that. You have to talk to your manager or team lead and say like, hey, I'd really rather be working on this stuff. Or, you know what, I've been working on back-end systems for so long. Could I dabble in front end a little bit on this next project? Could I just like dip my toe in those waters, see if I like it? If I don't like it, you still got me for back end. I'm still on the team. I'm not going anywhere, but like, could I try that a little bit? Or could I try working on some database stuff? Could I try working on some scalability or security? Like, there's so many topics that you could get into, that you need to figure out what it is you think you want to learn, make that known, go try it. And it's kind of that choose your own adventure that we often talk about, where you get to decide the course of your career, and that's really up to you to go decide how you want that to play out. And that starts by you having that conversation with the company. So hopefully that helps. Just looking back through chat a little bit. Everyone learns at different speeds. Some spend a lot of their downtime learning more to advance. There is some notion of that. At the same time, you should not have to expect that the only way you can advance in your career is to spend your off hours learning other things. If it's something that is your career goal, talk to your team and say, this is what I want to be doing. Can we look for those opportunities? My current job, for example, right now at Postman, I had a meeting with my manager this week, and we were talking about like, hey, I've been at the company 2 months today. How have things been going? And I said, there have been times where I was feeling a little overwhelmed by all the different things to do. I got blog posts. I had this 30 Days of Postman challenge to do. I started live streaming. I was doing webinars. I'm, putting together other curriculum. I'm working on live workshop events. I felt like I was being pulled in all these different directions. And she basically said, like, yeah, that's kind of on purpose, because what we want you to do now is figure out which of those parts do you like, and we're going to have you do more of that. So figure out of all those things, what do you like, what don't you like? Do you like working in the community forums and like coming up with little code samples for people? Do you like public speaking? Do you like doing the webinars? Do you like writing up curriculum, blog posts? Like, what do you enjoy doing? And it was kind of liberating to realize like, oh, I don't have to do all of this stuff all the time. I get to like kind of pick a little bit from column A, column B, to some degree. That's how this company operates. They give you a little taste of everything and then say, okay, now that you've sampled, from the buffet, what do you want for dinner, kind of thing, and like what do you want on a regular basis, and I get to help shape that, which is amazing because a lot of companies don't give you that. A lot of companies, you get in there and they're like, this is what you're doing, and they tell you what you're doing, but it's also their job to make opportunities for you. If they really want to keep you as an employee, it's their job to give you opportunities to do the things that you want to be doing, things that you're going to enjoy doing. So have that conversation with your manager and like get that conversation started at least. It's not going to happen overnight, but start having that conversation and start saying like, hey, I'm starting to feel a little stagnant. How can we change this up? G&D asked exactly what I just said. Don't most jobs have you doing the same thing more or less? Yeah, I mean, as a manager, if I see you succeed in something, it's like, oh, cool, you're obviously very gifted and talented at building that widget. You do a great job making coffee cups. So the next time I need a coffee cup, you're my person. I'm gonna reach out to you and be like, hey, I need another container. It's the same color as last time. I need you to make another container. It's metal like the other one, so it's pretty similar. It's got a little bit of see-through plastic just like the last one. So I need you to make me another one of these. And you're like, okay, well, what's the same? What's different? There's like etchings on the side, and there's vacuum, multi-layer metal, blah blah blah. But at the end of the day, they're very different containers for different purposes. And your job then is to let me know, like, yeah, okay, well, I can do that. I'm good at it, but it's not what I enjoy doing. I'd like to dabble into making like plastic bottles, or I don't even want to make bottles. I want to make potato chips. How can I make potato chips? And let them know, like, hey, you know what? It's still a container. It's still a container. I'm okay with like making containers, but I want to put different stuff in. I don't want to be doing beverage containers anymore. Like, let them know what you're interested in. That's up to you to let them know, and then they can make those opportunities available. Otherwise, yeah, they're going to have you doing the same thing over and over again. But if you let them know you want to do something different, then they can try to make that available for you. Let me get caught up on some other stuff in chat here. If your team, so Zui brings up an interesting point. If your team doesn't push you to learn more, and learning on your own doesn't show progress, then it might be time to find a team that does push you to grow. I don't know that it's up to the team. I think that that's still like an internal kind of motivation and drive for how you want to go learn and what you want to explore. And it's okay to go test the waters and say like, hey, I want to go like dabble in that thing. And maybe that is where a side project off hours is going to kind of give you that outlet and say, you know what, I want to dabble in mobile development. So I got a cell phone, I got all the tools that I need. Let me just tinker with some stuff over a couple of weekends and see if I even enjoy mobile development. Yeah, it's not something you're being paid to learn, but you still get to go explore whether that's something that you want to do on a more regular basis. And so you can make that opportunity available for yourself off hours. Ideally, though, your company is going to let you do that during work hours. But every company is a little bit different as far as how they want to make or how they want to use your time. And so again, I think just having that conversation with them, I think is going to make a difference for you. Again, sorry for the audio quality. I know the audio quality is not terrific. It's because I'm running off of my headset tonight instead of my usual Yeti mic. So I apologize that it sounds like I'm talking through a phone to another phone, to actually stream the audio. I apologize for the quality. Zui said, a great chef mentor of mine once told me, you learn everything you can from a place, and then they have nothing more to offer, then it's time to move on. Not being able to continue the path of learning and growing will eventually make you hate your job. Yeah, that's interesting. I think feeling like you're not growing anymore is a sense of dissatisfaction, but there are people that like the comfort in knowing, you know what, this company doesn't expect anything else from me, and I'm just comfortable doing what I'm doing. I've seen people kind of get stagnant in their job and be totally okay with that because they know they can just go in, they can keep grinding the same thing, and they don't have to worry about the stress and, of trying to learn new things and deadlines and whatever, because they know when they go in, they're kind of the expert on making whatever that Rails API that they've done 15 other times. And they know when they go into work next week, they're going to be building another Rails API, and it's going to be just like the last one. Some people are totally okay with just going and churning out the same thing over and over and over again. Some people get very dissatisfied very quickly with that, and after the second or third one, they're like, could I do something different, please? Some people enjoy the job security that comes with, having that knowledge where you can sit down and you're kind of that subject matter expert on that area of that system, and being able to replicate that and sort of apply that knowledge over and over. If the company is okay with like keeping you around for a long time doing that, that's on them. If you don't want to grow, that's on you. But I think it's a combination of whose job is it to push you to grow. Is it the team's job or your manager's job to push you into other things? Or is it your job to go figure out what you want to go learn and then find those opportunities? Or it could be a bit of both. I don't know necessarily that you have to quit your job just to find a team that's going to put pressure on you to continue to learn. I think that that's something that you need to control the pace of. My worry is that you'd get into a job where they're going to push too aggressively to go learn things, and you're either not going to learn it deep enough to have a good understanding, or it's just going to continue to build up and overwhelm to the point where you don't feel like you can do anything because there's so much pressure to constantly learn and constantly do new things all the time. So I think that there's some balance in there to find over whose job is it, and then at what pace can you learn and apply that knowledge and continue to learn and grow to where you're also not burning out, because that kind of defeats the purpose. If you're coming to work and burning out, totally defeats the purpose. I would rather have an employee find what we call that sustainable pace, where you can kind of work at the same kind of pace every day. Sometimes, maybe that pace goes up a little bit if there's like a busy period, but you want to kind of come back down to that sustainable pace all the time. Like as much as possible, you want to find, this steady pace of work that I know I can work at, I know I can learn and grow and apply that knowledge, where you know that you're growing in your skill, if that's what you want to chase. But there are jobs out there if you want to do the same thing over and over again. Those jobs do exist. And, if you want to settle into kind of that comfortable sort of job, they're out there. You can go find those jobs. Things that are like really, really slow pace kinds of jobs, and you get plenty of time to go learn what you want to go learn. Those things exist. And you can certainly go chase those jobs. If you want more job security than like the stability the job security and stability of like knowing you're doing the same thing over and over versus being in a kind of role where you're constantly learning, you might feel like, oh, I'm never going to learn it enough to actually go take that knowledge to another job anyway. And so making sure that you've got time to learn something and apply it and really understand it, I think is key, because you don't want a resume showing like pages and pages of like, these are, the 500 things that I learned and technologies that I got to play with at that last job, in 6 months, because the amount of time that you spent on any one of those things is so minimal. Is it really, did you really learn that thing? You kind of used it, but did you really learn it if you're doing it at such a fast pace? So I think that there's a balance in there to strike for sure. DevCrush says in chat, I had an awful technical interview the other day. They gave me 90 minutes to write an interpreter for a custom language, and I feel like I was destined for failure. Wow, I'm sorry to hear that. 90 minutes to write an interpreter for a custom language. That's tricky. I would question why. Honestly, that's the kind of thing, in a technical interview, it's like, why are you giving me this kind of problem? If you have some kind of internal language that you've built on your own, it also begs the question why. Like, why not just use an existing language and existing technology? Why did you have to go invent something and then have to quiz us during an interview that we can write an interpreter to go mimic that thing? To me, that feels very pointless. It doesn't feel like a great technical interview. And honestly, if you don't get that job, I wouldn't be too disappointed for you, because that sounds like a not great place to work if they're putting you through those kinds of hoops. There is some problem solving in there and finding like patterns and commonality and things like that. But at the end of the day, like, there's not a lot of practical day-to-day use for that kind of thing, I don't think. Yeah, trying not to read into it. Yeah. Especially, so yeah, and Dev Crush follows up in chat, says, it's especially because it was a position for a student. Yeah, that seems like a really odd thing to ask a student to do. I would feel weird even asking a senior level developer to write a custom language interpreter on the fly in 90 minutes. Yeah, it doesn't feel like a great interview experience. I'm sorry that you had to deal with that. Yeah, that's no fun. Heartbender, yeah, the mic sounds different. I'm using the microphone on my Bluetooth headset, so it does sound awful. I apologize for the audio quality. My main Yeti mic, for some reason, is not working. My main camera also wasn't working. I had a backup camera, but my backup microphone is in a box, so I'm going to have to pull that out and try that out a little bit later and see if I can fix the audio. So I apologize for the audio quality. Having a look back through chat here. G&D brings up a good point for Dev Crush. They probably just wanted to see how far you'd get. Yeah, some of those kinds of technical challenges aren't about finishing it. It's just to kind of see the process that you follow and understanding like how much of that process was a good process, and do you communicate well, especially for like an entry level role or a student level role. They're going to be caring a lot more about your process and sort of the steps that you take to solve a problem than actually writing good code and like finished code and like really perfect code. That said, there are companies that do want perfect code and like brilliant, kind of planning and all that kind of stuff. And those tend to be more of the FANG companies, which again, I would probably suggest most people avoid these days anyway, because they're very toxic and they will burn you out. And they don't care that they burn you out. They will discard you and let you go, and you'll have a good solid bullet point on your resume, and everyone will want to hire you after that. But I think that toxicity also breeds other toxicity. So my recommendation lately is like, don't bother with FANG. Go find a smaller company who's going to appreciate your input and appreciate your efforts and treat you like a human being, and not burn you out and use you up and then kick you to the curb. I know that sounds a little aggressive and a little harsh, over what I would normally share on the stream, but that's the reality of it. The FANG companies want the elite of the elite, and they're going to make you jump through these kinds of hoops with leak code problems and things like custom interpreters and whatever. And not saying that this company was a FANG level company, but just those are the kinds of things that I would expect from a FANG level company, that also strongly echo why I don't ever want to go work for a FANG company. I used to, don't anymore, have no interest in it anymore, because I see what they do to developers, and I've had colleagues go work there and leave because they're miserable, and I've heard story after story of people leaving those jobs because they're miserable. It's like, why do that? Why do that to yourself? So you can have a job experience on your resume where other people are going to want to jump up and want to hire you. Jonan and folks on his stream were just talking about this last night. And Jonan was kind of going on as well about like, yeah, you go get that FANG level job, like other companies are going to want to hire you, but the companies that want to hire you because you worked at a FANG company are also probably not the kinds of company that you want to be working for, because if they're also looking for elite programmers and elite developers, then they're just kind of continuing to breed that expectation in the industry, which makes it harder for people who are not the elite of the best. It makes it harder for the rest of us. So just my 2 cents on it. Going back through chat. So G&D was asking, Zooey, has your experience in tech been fun? Zooey starts the job next week, so looking forward to that. G&D says, did you have any miserable years or months? Yeah, I worked at a startup that was pretty miserable for a little over a year and a half. I started there in February of 2008. I left in November 2009. It's some of the best engineering work that I've done, but it was also one of the most toxic companies I've ever been at. And I'm happy to have gotten out. Um, it was one of the first companies where I invested money into a startup, and it paid off. I was able to pay off all our bills and put a down payment on a house. Um, and it was satisfying knowing that I had that eventual payout later on, because of the stock options. They went public and so on, and that was nice. But I had a really hard time there because I didn't have good management. The founders of the company were great, but between the founders and me was a layer of management who wouldn't listen. And I kept asking them, like, hey, I'm the only person working on this very pivotal piece of software that controls a lot of other aspects of what the business logic of what's driving our revenue. And I'm the only one that works on this piece of code. Like, I feel like I can never take time off. I feel like I can never go on vacation. I got to take my cell phone everywhere I go, as well as a laptop, literally everywhere I go. I can't ever go on vacation. Or if I go on vacation, like, there's a chance where I've got to sit in the hotel room while my kids are at the beach with my wife. And it's like, how is this a good life? And they're like, well, just, get someone else on the team and like train them. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, I literally need a second or third person working on this full time. I don't want someone to cover for me because I want vacation. I need someone else to partner with me on this work. And they wouldn't ever find me somebody. And so when I did take some time off for paternity leave when our first kid was born, um, they said, well, you're taking paternity leave. Okay, no problem. Train someone else. So I found someone else on the team, trained them, everything I did. They sat down, I mentored them. We did a lot of pair programming, and they were fantastic at it. And they knew exactly what to go do. Unfortunately, my engineering manager at the time was very biased against this individual for whatever reasons. I don't know if it was racial discrimination or they just didn't like this person or didn't trust them. I don't know what it was. But the day after my kid was born, they called me up and said, hey, your code broke. And I'm like, yeah, but I trained this other person. They're like, yeah, they don't want that other person working on it. They want you to fix it. It's like I'm literally just got home with like a newborn. And they're like, yeah, it should, it's not going to take too long, right? Just go in and fix the code. I'm like, so the day after my kid was born, I pulled an all-nighter. And the next morning, I deployed it, and I was like completely exhausted. I like fell asleep, and it still wasn't fixed. And so they called the house, and my wife answered the phone. And they're like, yeah, can you go wake Ian up? The code's still broken. She tore them a new one over the phone and hung up on them. And they left me alone for about a day and a half. And then they were calling and emailing. They're like, hey, this thing's broken. I'm like, yeah, that's why I trained that other person for like what to go do and what to look at and blah, blah, blah. And it was like that all the time. And I was literally working like 90 hours a week, every week for like 13 months. So yeah, it was horrible. It was horrible. It was okay money, had some really good stock options, which paid off in the end, but I was miserable while I was there. So yeah, you do have to be careful about that kind of stuff, and you do have to pay attention to who's managing the team and what kind of manager are they, and are they looking out for the team. In this case, this person was, I think, looking out more for business interests and not so much for the people. Otherwise, they would have had a better opportunity and like more opportunity for someone else to come partner with me on what I was working on instead of making me do it alone. So, yeah, not cool for sure. So yeah, good times, good times. All right, happy thoughts. Do a dad joke. Do a bang dad joke. We'll cheer everybody up here for a sec after I bring everybody down. Go on a rant about FANG jobs and talk about the lousy startups. What do you call an Argentinian with a rubber toe? Roberto. All right, let's do one more dad joke. What lies at the bottom of the ocean and twitches? A nervous wreck. That's a good one. That's a good one. Not gonna lie, that one's pretty good. I gotta send that to a friend of mine who I think is going to appreciate that. Cool. So yeah, if anybody else has stuff in chat they want to chat about or questions, drop that in there for me. I'm just gonna send a quick message over here while I remember. So this other person and I, we trade these kinds of puns and jokes over Twitter messages. They sent me one that says, "I call my horse Mayo, and sometimes Mayo neighs." I'll write it out in chat. I call my horse Mayo, sometimes Mayo neighs. It's a good one. Definitely a good one. So a pirate walks into a bar, and the bartender says, "Hey, I haven't seen you in a while. What happened? You look terrible." And "What do you mean?" says the pirate. "I feel fine." The bartender says, "Yeah, but what about that wooden leg? You didn't have that last time." The pirate says, "Oh, well, we were in this really crazy battle. I got hit with a cannonball, lost the leg, but I'm fine now." The bartender says, "Yeah, but what about that hook on your hand? You didn't have that last time. What happened to your hand?" And the pirate says, "Oh, we got in another battle. I boarded a ship and got into a sword fight. And my hand got cut off, but, I got fitted with a hook. And I'm fine. It's all good." It's like, "But what about the eye patch? You're wearing an eye patch now." The pirate says, "Oh, yeah, one day we were out at sea and a flock of birds flew over and were making a bunch of noise. And I looked up and one of them crapped in my eye." And the bartender says, "Wait, you lost an eye because a bird crapped in your eye?" And the pirate's like, "Well, it was the first day with a hook." That was funny. Not a lot of mainstream tech jobs where I come from, mostly small one-man shops or super large companies, G&D says in chat. Yeah, I get that. So every region is going to have like its own kinds of jobs and kinds of industries and so on. And that's probably G&D, if you're looking for a job where it's not like super small or super giant company. Try looking for more medium-sized companies who are doing more remote work, and try to reach out and network with those companies and see if they've got 100% remote jobs. If you're okay working remote, if you're the kind of person who likes to be in the office or likes to be in the office some of the time, then you might need to think about geographic location. Again, not everybody has the flexibility of like, "Oh yeah, just get up and move to some other city, no problem." Because that's not feasible for everybody. But I think if you're okay working remote, then you could certainly look for remote opportunities with other sized companies and see if there's something a little more in your interest to see if that would help. Otherwise, yeah, it can feel like you're very stuck. I know someone who lives in a kind of a relatively small town, and there's not a lot of opportunity at all in tech in that small town, and so they have to work remote because they got family nearby, they got kids in school, like whatever their circumstance is. It's not like they can just pick up and move. Not everybody has that kind of privilege or position in life to just pack up and move. And so you do kind of have to go where the jobs are to some degree, but I think in today's industry in tech, I think there are a lot more companies going remote. I think it'll be a lot easier to find kind of those mid-sized companies who are better at dealing with remote kinds of jobs, and I would probably start looking for one of those jobs instead. That would be my take. If you like working remotely, again, not everybody likes working remotely, so these are the choices that we have to make around what kind of job do you want to get, what kind of job do you want to pursue, what kind of jobs are even there, what kinds of jobs are nearby. A lot of that does make a big difference for you. The plan is to tackle some freelance stuff once I'm confident enough in my knowledge. Still got a bit more to learn. Yeah, I hear you. You're not in the U.S. or Europe at all. Yeah. I would say that if you're looking to get into like a consultancy kind of role or freelance kind of role, you don't have to be an expert. They will look to you to be an expert, because they're going to say like, hey, we want to hire GND 404 to go build, this kind of application. If you know how to build like 80% of that application, you're fine. You can go build the stuff, and the stuff that you know you're going to build quickly, and the stuff that you don't know, you'll work a little bit slower. But you kind of want to buffer all of that into, yeah, this is why it's going to take 6 months to build that project. You don't tell them, oh yeah, it's going to take 6 months because I know this much about this part, but this other part I have to go learn everything. You don't want to tell them that. Most contracts, they don't want to have to pay you to go learn things. But learning is part of our industry. Learning is part of the job. And I think it's okay to realize that. And I think that it's okay to have an expectation that you can go learn some of what you need to do for the job, even as a consultant. I think it's totally all right to do. So I think that you could absolutely pursue a consulting kind of job without being an expert and just say like, hey, I've been working in the industry for a couple of years or however long. And you know what, I'm going to work on this little side project and see how far I can get with it. And, we'll see where it takes me. And, go, I don't want to make it sound like, oh yeah, just go find a consulting job because, if you don't have experience as a consultant, it's kind of like finding that first job as an entry-level dev where nobody wants to hire you without experience. And some people will say like, oh, just go work on some stuff for free for a little while. I usually advocate like, don't ever do anything for free. Always get paid for your time. Don't do anything for free. When it comes to freelance work and freelance opportunities though, I would still say like, don't do things for free. I think you could probably volunteer. There's a difference between volunteering and doing things for free in that volunteering your time could be tax deductible. So if you find like a nonprofit group that you can sort of volunteer your time for, the time that you spend working for that nonprofit is tax deductible, usually on your taxes. And so any time that you spend working, traveling, and so on could be a tax write-off. And so, yeah, you're working for free, but then you also lower your taxable income as well, and so you get extra money back on your taxes next tax season, which is kind of like getting paid for the job. But you got to wait till like next tax season to get paid for that. So check like laws and stuff like that in your area where you are. I know in Canada and the U.S. it's that way. I'm not sure if it's going to be that way like all around the world, but that could be one thing to look at is see whether volunteering your time for a nonprofit organization is considered a tax write-off. And if it is, you get a tax write-off, lowers your other regular income. You're still learning other stuff on the side, and now you have a portfolio and like, sort of testimonial or customer reference that you can then give to other people to say like, I did some work for this company. I've got a reference from them saying that I know what I'm doing. And that just makes it easier to get that next job or that next consulting gig. Because it's not as easy to just say like, oh yeah, just go make a profile on Fiverr and like everybody will hire you. That's not always going to be the case. It won't be that easy. And so you can absolutely spend some time like volunteering with the purpose of getting that tax write-off. But don't volunteer just to give your time away and say like, I'll do this for free just because I'm looking to build up some experience. I would say don't do that. Get paid something and say like, hey, you know what? Like building a website like that might typically cost $5,000. I'll do it for $1,000. So you're at least getting paid something for your time. And that also puts a little bit of pressure on them from a financial point of view that they're not going to go in and constantly make changes and whatever, like agree on what the terms are, write up a contract. Like write up a contract saying this is exactly what I'm building, nothing more. If you want more, it's going to cost extra. But I'm going to do this much project work for this amount of time or money, and I get done what I get done. Or, like you either hire me for 100 hours or you hire me until the project's done and I just bill you hourly or whatever, or I'll bill you some fixed amount of money. And you want to write that up in a contract. Get everybody to sign this thing. You don't want to just do it all verbally. You have to have it in writing. Sign the contracts so that you've each got a copy so you all know what to expect from one another. And then, yeah, go build that project. Even if you're only making a little bit of money, it's still something that you got paid to do, and that gives you more credibility than to say like, oh yeah, I volunteered and built these 4 or 5 other projects. there are companies out there that look at that and go, yeah, but you didn't get paid, so it doesn't really count. It's not really professional because you weren't paid to do the work. Where if you say like, hey, these are paid projects that I did as a consultant, then they're like, oh, all right, you got a consultancy business and you've done these projects with actual clients where you got paid. Okay. Then some companies are going to look at that and go, oh yeah, okay, that is legitimate professional experience. It stinks that, people look and think about things that way, but it's the reality of it. So yeah, if you can get paid for your time, even if it's like some nominal amount of money, go get paid. Go get paid for sure. Chet Dev, good to see you in chat. Says, speaking of taxes, I have some crypto I sold at a loss. I want to put it against gains from stocks. Do you know how that works? I didn't get a tax form from your crypto broker since it wasn't a gain. You should still get some kind of tax form saying that it showed a loss. At a minimum, when you're filing your taxes, you can say, I bought it for this much, I sold it for this much, therefore it was a loss. So if you're using tax software like TurboTax or something like that, you can just enter all of the purchases and all the sales, and it'll figure out that it was a loss, and it'll sort of counteract any gain that you make. But the gains and losses are also, they're also going to play in and factor in like short-term and long-term capital gains based on when you bought it, how long you held on to it, when you sold it, and all the valuations and so on. I'm not a tax accountant. I don't even play one on TV, so you'll have to consult with someone who knows more about your particular situation, just as my standard disclaimer there. But for me personally, when I do all of that stuff and my taxes, I did do a tiny bit of crypto last year through Robinhood, and they sent me a tax form showing everything that I bought and how much I sold it for, and the fact that I sold all of my crypto at a loss, but I also made gains on my stocks. When I put all of that stuff into TurboTax, it kind of balanced out in the end. So they should give you some kind of statement, even if it wasn't a gain. They are supposed to give you some kind of statement saying what you bought, how much you bought it for, how long you held it, how much you sold it for, and whether it was a gain or loss. They need to have some kind of statement available to you. So you should be able to download that from them. If not, most tax preparation software, you can go in and you can manually set what you bought and set your own prices and so on, and then that software will figure out that it was a loss and maybe counteract some of the gains and so on. But the amount of money that you get taxed on a gain is going to be different from the tax credit that you necessarily get from a loss. They don't evenly balance each other out. Like just because I sold something at $100 gain and I sold something else at $100 loss doesn't equal net zero, because I'm going to get taxed on this $100 gain differently, and I'm going to get a different amount of tax credit back for this other $100. Like if I've got to pay, say, 40% tax on this $100 gain because it was a short-term thing, it doesn't necessarily mean that this $100 loss is also giving me a $40 credit to give me net zero. So they're not going to exactly balance each other out, but your tax software should be able to figure that out for you. So try to figure out how to download the statement, and then if they don't have a statement, you should be able to go in and see a history of what you bought and when and for how much, and you can just start putting that stuff in your tax software yourself, or put it in a spreadsheet for yourself and give that to whoever's doing your taxes and say, these are the sort of stock symbols and crypto symbols of what I bought and what the price was, the date, the quantity, the value, and then when you sold it, you want the date and the value, and like what you actually got as the outcome or proceeds, like if there were fees and all that kind of stuff. Put all those fees in the spreadsheet as well, because that can sometimes get counterbalanced a little bit in tax software too. That's my experience with dealing with taxes with stock and crypto stuff. But last year I dabbled a little bit in Dogecoin because it was kind of fluctuating a little bit, and then I'm like, nah, you know what, I'm done with crypto. I sold all my crypto. Actually, Dogecoin was the only one that I think I had last year, and it was like early in the year. I sold it all, and I haven't touched crypto since. So yeah, that's my experience. So good luck with it. I know the government is starting to be a lot more strict on declaring cryptocurrencies and things like that, because they want to make sure they're getting their share. On the regular stock market, you're going to get all of these regular statements, and you're going to get taxed appropriately on all that stuff, kind of not automatically, but like the stockbrokers have to file those things with the IRS and so on, where the cryptocurrency people don't. And so the government's like, no, we still need, we still want like our share of any gains that you made on that. So yeah, definitely pay attention to it. You don't want to skip out on that stuff. You don't want to get in trouble for that kind of stuff. So. RC Maniac, good to see you in chat. Hello, hello. RC Maniac says the IRS has rules on stolen property and goods. You have to report the value of stolen goods. What? So if I go jack somebody's car and like steal the radio, I have to pay gains on the radio that I stole. Yeah, good luck with that. That's kind of funny. So all those porch pirates that like steal all of my neighbors' parcels, they have to, they're technically, legally supposed to claim all of that stuff as income. That's interesting. So G&D asked in chat, kind of going back to the whole freelancing thing, does having a past freelancing sort of background turn off potential employers? Like they think that you won't be committed or you're trying to do it on their time or something? That's a fantastic question. So I quit working full-time to do full-time freelance work, and then I quit that to go back into full-time work. And when I quit to go back into full-time work, I did have a question from a couple of companies like, oh yeah, you've been doing this freelance thing for almost 3 years. Like, why are you now looking for a full-time job? And I said, well, my wife and I are thinking about starting a family at some point. I didn't tell them that, she was already pregnant, because you don't want to talk about that stuff during an interview. I said, we're thinking about family someday, and I want to make sure I have a job with benefits and insurance and, something that I can work at for a while and be like really well situated and whatever before we have a family. And they're like, oh, okay, cool. And that was it. That was the end of the discussion. I would say if you are currently freelancing and also trying to find a job, that will be harder. And I think that your question raises a good point here. Are employers going to think that you're splitting your interest or splitting your time in some way? Honestly, it's none of their business. It kind of is, because when they hire you full-time, they expect you're going to give them their 40 hours a week or whatever. And they want to know, too, that like if one of your freelance clients calls you up in the middle of the day to say, like, hey, that site that you built is down. Like, can you go fix it real quick? Yeah, you're kind of on the clock, and you're supposed to be giving that time to your employer. At the same time, if you're working remote and your employer gives you flex time, go work on that site for an hour or two, and then get back to your job and finish up the work that you had doing. As long as you're getting your job done, your employer shouldn't care like when and how. But it can be a bit of a tricky situation. There was who was it that I had on the stream? Was it Martin McGovern last summer? I think it was Martin. Martin has had a couple of posts on LinkedIn over the fall about like, would you ever work 2 full-time jobs? Like, would you ever actively go get 2 full-time jobs and give each job like 35 hours a week kind of thing? And I'm like, no, there's no possible way I could juggle that and like balance that. Plus I like to be kind of, lead by integrity, and what you see is what you get. And I would never want to hide the fact that, oh yeah, I work for so-and-so, but I also work for so-and-so, because I'm very vocal about who I work for and how much I love my job. And it would be weird to be like, oh yeah, I work for Postman and, Acme Inc. It would be weird to put that kind of stuff on LinkedIn, that you are actively working 2 full-time jobs at the same time. Or have one company be like, hey, don't you work for us full-time? Why does your LinkedIn say that you work for some other company full-time? Like, what's going on? And some companies will fire you if they find out that, that you signed an employment agreement promising that you're giving them your time and attention. Meanwhile, you're also being paid by some other company. So when it comes to the whole idea of freelance work, it could be kind of the same thing. It's not that they're not going to hire you or they're not going to interview you. But you could say like, hey, I'm looking for a full-time job and I want to wind down my freelance work. You can tell them that. But then once you get the job, you don't have to wind down anything. You can keep working freelance stuff. That's on your own time. And as long as you're not using work resources and work hardware, like my work laptop, this is only for work. I don't do any personal stuff on this work laptop now that it's in. Where my personal computer, now I can take all my work stuff off, and now when I'm on this machine, I'm not doing any work. When I'm here, I'm dedicated to Tech Interview Guide or, whatever I'm doing, gaming, whatever. This is my time. This is how I want to spend my time. When I'm on my work laptop, I am working. I'm not going to be paying attention to Discord. I'm not going to be paying attention to Twitter unless it's something work related. And so I think if you are currently working freelance, I think you could still go get a full-time job and not worry too much about it. If they ask you, you could say like, yeah, I'm starting to wind that down, or you know what, I don't have any active clients right now, but I do occasionally work on little side projects on the side. Most companies aren't going to have a problem with that as long as it's not competing with their business. If you start doing some freelance work for someone who is a competitor to your employer, that's where you start getting into what we call conflict of interest. And a lot of companies are going to take a very poor view of you doing that kind of thing. But if you're really upfront and honest and say like, hey, I like freelancing on the side. I like doing this stuff on the side. If that's okay, I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to let you know every client that I bring on and just make sure that there's no conflict of interest. And I promise that everything I do is on my own time. I only do it after hours. I'm not using my work equipment whatsoever. Then the company should be okay with that. The company shouldn't have a problem with that. If you're upfront and you're honest about it and they trust you, they're not going to have an issue. Where they're going to start seeing an issue is if the quality of your work starts to suffer. Meanwhile, you like go out and buy a new car or something. They're like, well, are you freelancing more to go afford that car? And is that why the quality of your work for us is slipping because you're putting more hours on this other thing? Then they might start having conversation about it. But I think if you're really upfront and honest about it, they shouldn't have a problem with it at all. Now, I know some people that would say like, hey, you don't have to tell them squat. You don't have to tell them anything about who you're working for and whatever. Your time is your time. There are laws being passed in various states. I know California is a big one where it's like, when you're sort of on your own time, like nothing you build belongs to the company that employs you. There are some states, though, where anything you build belongs to your company, no matter when you build it. It belongs to them because they are your full-time employer. And so that's where if you live in a location like that, you do need to look at those kinds of laws and say, oh yeah, if I build something, my employer gets first dibs. You have to talk to your employer and say, hey, I was asked to do a contract to do this freelance thing, to build such and such. Is that something that the company wants to claim as ownership, or is this something that I can do as freelance work? Because I want to do it as a freelancer. Most companies, again, as long as it's not conflicting, or you're not building something that's going to compete with the company, or you're not going to say like, hey, I want to go build this thing for this other company, but I want to use this other software that I've been building over here for the job. I want to use it in this freelance thing. Companies are going to say, nah, that's not cool. But if you say like, hey, I'm building this thing 100% independently, I'm recreating everything from scratch, I'm not using anything from work, I'm not even using my work hardware, like if I get a phone notification during the day, like I'm not even going to pay attention to it, I'm only going to do that stuff after hours and on weekends, your company should be okay with that. If they're not okay with it, then you can discuss why. But every company I've ever been at has not had a problem with it because I've been upfront and honest with them about it. Similar to like Tech Interview Guide. When I was applying for all these jobs back in December and January, I was really upfront with companies and saying like, hey, I work on this thing on the side. I do streaming. I do like live events. I talk to schools like maybe once a month, but no more than once a month. So that's got to be cool with you because that's part of what I do. That's part of who I am. That's part of my sort of brand. That's me. That's who you're getting. If you hire me, I'm still going to be working on this stuff. I want to maintain copyright on everything I write for Tech Interview Guide. Like any new material that I produce that goes on Tech Interview Guide, I own the copyright to. And I made sure that every company that I interviewed at that I got an offer from, I went back to them and said, here's a list of projects I'm actively working on, including Tech Interview Guide, and I maintain copyright to all this stuff. If you're not cool with that, then we need to sort that out before I sign this job offer. And guess what? Not a single company had a problem with any of it. They're like, that's fine. That's your thing. It has nothing to do with what we do day to day, so that's fine. In fact, some companies are like, oh, you live stream? That's awesome. Oh, you blog? Cool, that's part of our job too. And so it was showing relevance to that job. And so, if you can do that as a freelance thing and say like, yeah, I've been freelancing, I've been doing this stuff, and I'm going to continue freelancing because that's how I'm learning and growing, And what I learn and grow over there, I'm going to come apply over here. I can't see why any company would be upset about that. So that would be my thought on that. RC Maniac says, yeah, don't do personal stuff on a work laptop. Yeah, for sure. You don't want to use their hardware. You don't want to use their network. Like even if you're at work. So like one person asked me one time, like if I bring my own personal laptop to work and I want to work on some freelance stuff or work on a personal project over lunch, is that okay? It's like, no, because you're using their network. Like unless you're going to like tether off your phone and the phone belongs to you and the company's not even paying for your cell phone plan, like you don't want to use anything that work is providing in any way, shape, or form. Like literally go sit out in the parking lot or sit out on a bench or something. Like don't be anywhere near the building if you're going to go work on freelance stuff over a lunch break. Like, or just don't do it over a lunch break. Wait until you get home, or do it on the bus on the way to work and on the bus leaving work if you take mass transit or train or whatever. Find other times to do it than the time that you're dedicating to the office. Again, that's just my 2 cents. I think if you can do everything from a sense of integrity where they can trust that, yeah, you're doing that stuff on the side, but that's your side thing, and they don't ever have to worry about the quality of your work suffering because of that thing, I think every company is going to be cool with that. And if they're not, that means they want to micromanage your time, and I would probably start having conversations about why that's not okay with them. And it could come down to a trust issue, that they just don't trust that you're going to get your job done. Which would raise even more questions about like, why don't you trust that I'm going to get my job done? Have you seen a slip in quality that now makes you not trust me? Or have you had other people work here that this has happened and therefore you don't trust anybody? Like, how can I prove to you that this is legit? Because I'm going to keep doing this on the side. Like, you got to be okay with that. And it's a conversation that you need to have with your company. And it's going to be more than just your manager. You might have to like talk to HR and the legal team, and like they literally sign documents where you list like all the GitHub repos of projects that you've been building that you don't want them to lay claim to. And they literally go in and they sign a document saying, yep, we don't care about any of these projects that Ian is building. I've literally had to do that on job offers that I got. I would literally give them a list of all of my GitHub repos of these are active projects that I'm working on. And I actually had one company be like, we don't care about the side stuff that you work on. As long as it doesn't conflict with what we do, like, I don't care about what you build. I'm like, okay, cool, great. So I can keep building whatever I want to build, as long as it doesn't conflict with work. So you just have to be really honest about, like, hey, is what I'm doing here conflicting with work? You need to be honest with yourself and them about that. Archimaniac says, no, if you bring your personal laptop for work a good portion of the time, if work decides they need to wipe their data, they can legally wipe your personal laptop. I would say there are some limitations on what they're allowed to do with your personal equipment. But yeah, again, you need to look at your employment agreements as to what they are allowed to do. If you do happen to bring a personal laptop and you don't even use it on the network, then they can't they would have to prove somehow that you used your laptop on their network, that you've somehow accessed something inappropriate and they need to wipe it. But again, I would keep those things completely separate. Like, don't bring personal devices to work. And when you get home, like, put that thing on a shelf and like, don't touch it. Charge it overnight so you're ready to go tomorrow. But like, don't do personal stuff on a work laptop and don't do work stuff on your personal machines. It just keeps it much more separate. It is kind of a pain, though, if you have multiple machines to manage multiple environments, especially where you want to synchronize things. But I would rather spend the time figuring out how to synchronize things across systems than to end up in that sort of muddy area of like, oh, are they going to want to like come look at my personal machine? So I actually had that conversation with my IT team this week, and they're like, hey, we need, you've been working here for 2 months now. We don't have the serial number of your laptop yet. And I'm like, yeah, it's supposed to arrive like today. This was yesterday. I had this conversation. I'm like, I'm on a personal machine, and they're like, well, we need the serial number. I'm like, well, it's a custom-built machine. It doesn't have a serial number. I said, I can give you like my Windows license key or something if that's what you need. And they're like, oh, no, never mind. It's fine. And I said, well, once I get the work laptop, like all the work stuff is getting wiped off this machine anyway. But I said I kept everything kind of off anyway. Like, I'm not on the VPN. I have very limited browser access. We do everything through SSO and stuff like that, where I've got to go through like multiple points of like, authentication layers and stuff like that. And a lot of that uses my phone anyway. And they're like, yeah, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Just get everything set up on the laptop and use that only. So yeah, I would say if you're open and honest about it, there's not going to be a problem. There won't be a problem at all. RC Maniac says, I go through the full legal documents when signing. Yeah, me too. Like, I've seen plenty of job offers over my time in the industry, and I still read every word of every job offer I get. So I know exactly what their expectation is of me. I know what my expectation is supposed to be for them, and we're all going to get along great because we all know that. You don't ever want to end up in some kind of gray area where you're not sure what the expectation is, because that's where you can start getting into trouble. So G&D asks, that's rough. What do people do? Quit and launch their startup the next day? I mean, in some cases, depending on the state that you're in. If you're in a state where building a side project or something like that would belong to that company, then that's where you want to like go talk to the company and say, hey, I'm building this thing. I'm going to be doing it as a side project. I do eventually want to build this into a business like a year or two down the road. This is what I'm planning on building, and I don't want this company to have any claim to anything that I do. It's all on my own time, blah, blah, blah. If they're not okay with that, then you can start pushing your lawmakers to change legislation and say like, hey, we need to make a law that whatever I work on the side belongs to me, that my company gets like my 40 hours a week, and anything outside of what I do for work is my own property, and I maintain my own rights to it. If you do have to sign a job employment thing that says like everything you invent belongs to us, get a lawyer to look at it and say like, hey, how can we coordinate this, because I want to be able to work on stuff on the side and not give them ownership to it. I want to maintain copyright on things that I invent in my own time, and get a lawyer involved. It'll cost some money, but that may be worth the hassle. RC Maniac says, closest I got to any conflict was an internship. It was set up through school. I accepted, and day one they said I needed to sign legal agreements, and I read that any software you write belongs to us. And I called the HR person and indicated I contribute to open source. They legit went to the lawyers. I sat in a room for 2 hours. They came back with an amended work agreement with that clause removed. Yeah, and that's one way to do it. I mean, just let them know, like, I'm working on open source. I cannot give you legal right to things that I contribute to open source libraries. So yeah, you can talk to them about it. You might be able to negotiate that kind of thing. Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point for sure. Cool. All right. Well, it is 8:30. I've been going on for an hour and a half, and this is my third live stream thing of the day. So I'm going to wrap up. I'm going to go maybe tear some stuff apart and look at some audio, but probably not. I'm probably going to go to bed. It's been a long week, and I got a busy day tomorrow too. So I'm probably just going to wrap up, and I'll get this up on YouTube a little later. If you've watched this far on YouTube, please like and subscribe. I'm bad at marketing, and I need your help to do it. So tell your friends. Let them know I've got stuff on YouTube, that I've got all this free material on techinterview.guide, the website. I got a free email series that you can subscribe to, totally free. It unsubscribes you at the end, so you don't even have to manually unsubscribe. Thanks for hanging out in chat today. I appreciate everybody's questions. Thank you for bringing questions all the time. I love coming in and just having conversation with all of you. It's fantastic. I would like to coordinate some kind of like regular event where I have some of the regular folks in chat actually come on the stream sometime. And I'm trying to think of a way that we can do that over like just an audio channel if you don't want to be on video, but have some way of having some of you folks actually on the stream. Like RC Maniac, you got a ton of knowledge and wisdom too. I'd love to have you on the stream sometime and just kind of pick your brain about some things and hear your perspectives. So if you're open to being on the stream, shoot me an email. You can find all my contact info on the website, or you can reach me on LinkedIn or Twitter. I use the same username, IanDouglas736, on all those channels. Reach out to me if you ever want to be on the stream and just share your perspectives and ideas. Like, we can do a whole panel of folks if you don't want to be the only one. I'd be totally cool with that. But yeah, I'd love to have some of you folks who are regulars. I know Zooey's going to be on the stream at some point once you get settled in on the job. RC Maniac says I can just be voice. That's fine. Hopefully your audio is going to sound better than mine. But yeah, I'm hoping for the stream on Sunday that my audio will be all fixed up. So again, I appreciate your patience putting up with this crappy headset for tonight. But yeah, we'll catch you all on Sunday. It'll be 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. So that'll be the new time that I'm streaming on Sundays going forward, at least for the foreseeable future. If that's going to change later on, I'll give everybody plenty of notice. But yeah, thanks for hanging out tonight. RC Maniac says, I'm not against discussion, but I don't like webcams. Totally all right. Totally cool. If you remember, we had Alex from San Diego. He was a recruiter buddy of mine. We just had his picture on the stream, and he just came in on audio. Same kind of thing. He didn't want to be on a webcam. So totally cool with that. So what time with Sundays? It's going to be 10 a.m. Eastern, sorry, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern time in the U.S. Just to help accommodate for other countries that want to attend, and guests and so on that I want to have on the stream who are over in the UK, just to accommodate some other folks. So 11 a.m. Central. It'll be 11 a.m. Mountain time, so it'll be 12 p.m. Central. Because Central, I think, is 1 hour behind Eastern. So it'll be 11 a.m. Mountain time, 12 p.m. Central, 1 p.m. Eastern, I think. RC Maniac says, let's see if I'm awake at 1 p.m. Yeah, me too. This past Sunday, I woke up at like 10 to 11 going, oh, wow, this is the time I should be getting ready for a stream. So we'll see how it goes. I may adjust over time, but yeah, we'll see how it goes for a little bit over the summer. Summer vacations and stuff like that. I may drop out for a couple of Sundays so we can get out of town for the occasional weekend. But yeah, thanks for hanging out, everybody. We'll catch you on Sunday, and we'll see you next time. Cheers. Oh, let's go see who can we raid. Who's online? Who can we go bug? Let me go find a browser. And let's go see who's online. Is there anybody we can go raid? My audio is really bad. Let's see who's online that we haven't raided or haven't raided in a while. Programming with the author of Automate the Boring Stuff. I think we're going to go raid Al Swagert. Good. Yeah, I think we'll go raid Al. Cool. All right, I'm going to set up a raid, and we'll see folks over there. Drop some emotes and so on in chat. Make a bunch of noise when we get over there, and we'll catch you over on that stream in a little bit. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. We'll see you next time.